Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Decommunity Podcast. I'm Roy Bernheim. I'm one of the co-founders of Decommerce, and I'm here to bring you the inside scoop of everything brands, innovation, and community through conversations like the one we're just about to have with a global leader and a serial entrepreneur. And I'm really excited for what Frederic will share with us today. So I'd love to welcome Frédéric Fekkai. He's founder and a serial entrepreneur. Welcome, Frederic, and thank you so much for joining. And if you'd like to introduce yourself, that'd be great.
Well, thank you, Roy, for having me on your wonderful podcast. I'm delighted to join this conversation, and hopefully we can just cover a few things interesting for other entrepreneurs as well.
Really sure so, because you have such an interesting story to tell, and from coming from Europe, going to the US and bridging the two to building incredible, not just one brand, but brands. So I'd love if you could share where you'd like to start telling your story. How did that come about when you started, I think in Paris back then, or even before?
Yeah. Well, first of all, for the audience, it's just worth to know that obviously from my accent, I give it away. I'm from France. I'm specifically from the south of France, a beautiful town, Aix-en-Provence. And I think it's worth mentioning because Aix-en-Provence, after Paris, is the second most beautiful city in France, has a rich culture, rich history. The architecture is pretty, the landscape is pretty. I mean, it's not because I say so, but look at, Picasso, Cézanne, Van Gogh, Matisse, everyone went there to do their masterpieces because of the light. So that has influenced me a great deal, not in just hair, but in beauty, in aesthetic in general. So I was not aspired to be, in the hair business or beauty business. I wanted to go to the Beaux-Arts in Paris, which is a wonderful fine art school. And my dad didn't allow me to do that. So he wanted me to be a businessman. And, he thought this art school was not right. And so I went to law school, but did not like it. And I was lucky when I was there. I was doing some modeling on the side to earn some money. And I met through this modeling job some of the most amazing artists. And one of them was a very famous, the most famous makeup and hair stylist on photo shoot, videos, film, and so on. And that person invited me to come to Paris and took me under her wings. And basically, I learned through her and became very passionate about this industry, but differently than anyone who goes to cosmetic school and learn how to do hair. That was not the way I did it. I did it because I saw and met some of the most amazing people. So the first thing is I saw an amazing combination of great artists, but also some great business people, through companies like L'Oréal, through companies like Dessange, which is a big salon chains in Europe mostly, and the Middle East. And there, I really learned a great deal about the industry in general. And I discovered that it was not just about hair. It's about actually it was the most fascinating for me is the experience that we brought, the attention that we brought to customer, and that became a commerce. That's what really made me stick. So that was an eye-opening for me, is to see that there was an amazing market to make people feel great and look great.
That's so fascinating. And what I hear here is also that it was not just a product or something that you did, but it was really also the surrounding you had, let's say the community that you had around you. How did you notice that you resonated so much with that community and that was the way you wanted to go?
The interesting thing is that, this business, and I'm talking both the service business and the product business, it's all about building a community. But first is your customer. It's to talk to them and I always say to, even when I teach, is that how can you surprise them? How you delight them? Because surprise could be negatively as well. How do you delight them? And to do that is first of all to really know what you're doing, learn it, be on the pulse of it, being on ahead of everything, learn everything, but also is to make sure the customer feels like she or he knows that they're talking to a pro, to talking to somebody who is going to give them some great advice and help them, support them. People love to know that you care for them and that you take care of them. The attention, the time, all of it is very important. So it's about really nurturing them, and not in a pejorative way. It's really genuinely to make sure you address what their needs are.
Wow, and I'd love to know more about how this is still happening today, but also back then. How did you know what their needs were? I mean, you cater to so many of, the world's biggest stars. How did that even come about, and how did that trust come about?
So I was lucky to do two things. I was lucky to be working in a commercial space, a salon, hair salon, and also in freelance and studio. So I was doing, photo shoot, fashion shows, film, and so on. So I had both experience, one really artistic, one artistic but more livable and commercial. And you hear and you see also, when I first started, don't forget, this is now many years ago, we didn't have all the choices we have today. Product, we had to be so creative. Sometimes we were using a product that were not for hair, but we mixed it with the other product because we're trying to do what didn't exist. So, but what was fascinating is to hear from the customer their problem, their issues. What was it? And many times it was because of chemical things. So sometimes it was the color or the highlight or the process chemical on the hair would change completely the texture of the hair. And sometimes it's just nature, the sun, the water, and so on. So it was very important to really guide them and to use the right product so that they can alter, they can really manage and really bring the texture of the hair to their liking. So sometimes it was just lack of shine, sometimes it's the taming the thickness of the hair, sometimes it's the frizziness and so on. So every time is about, but also is to show them what to do and what not to do. And I think when you're genuine and you don't do this because you're just selling product, because at the time I didn't have any product, you do this just because you care and you want to make sure they succeed. And then this stays ingrained. This is the base of everything. And you keep doing this all the time, and to make sure that your customer feels like, they are going to be able to manage their beauty, their hair. So it's important. And let's not forget back then when I started, and this is actually very relevant for today. It's back then, hair care was a commodity. Okay. So it was one size fit all, and the big giant company in need of P&G, all of this, they had product, but it was product that was just, for everybody. It was not like specialized. It was like, dry hair and maybe some dandruff, stuff like that. That was it. So when I came to the market, I introduced an amazing range of product based on skincare. So it was much more advanced technology, much more luxurious, much more pampering, much more diverse for different type of people. For instance, one of the success was one of my first product that was a success and really putting me on the scene, if you will. It's the apple cider clearing rinse. The reason that product existed is because I saw my customer who came back and had so much deposit on their hair, whether it was from chlorine, from the pool, or even sometimes, copper from the pipe at home, minerals, things like that. And, as we know, water is different everywhere. The water in New York or LA or Brazil or anywhere is all different. So the upper side of clean rinse was a product that will strip all the non-desirable effect on the hair. And that showed already, like the skincare, that I was addressing issues that would help the beauty of the hair.
So that's really the big advantage you have, is that, already back then you had your salon, you were actually talking to your customers all day, right? So you really knew what was on their mind, what was not just on their mind, but with how the products reacted.
Yes.
How do you see this like now even? Do you still bring this in when you develop new products? How do you see it now?
Well, yeah, it hasn't changed. I mean, it's just amplified. We have the salon today, and we hear from the customer, obviously, at the salon, but also we hear it on social media, people who are telling us. And this is how, for instance, we launch back a cult product, which is a brilliant gloss cream that, was discontinued. And because we had so many customers shouting online, why you don't make this product again? Why, and we launched, we learned, we listened, and we put it back in the market.
Wow, so really like following the feedback that you saw online
Yeah,
from
exactly.
people.
It's interesting because, as you know, it's all about trends, even product, And so all of a sudden, we went on this trend when I bought the company of trying to be very clean and, sustainable and doing the best product we can. But for some reason, the customer associated clean with not so functional, not so efficient. So we had to go back and really bring, products that are really showing results right away and still stay clean, but definitely be a little bit more universal.
I find that fascinating, this point, because it sounds like it was also a major decision, right? There was a positioning, and then there was some feedback or data points outside. Can you share a bit more about how that decision process came about and how in the end you decided to go?
First of all, when you really hear from your customer, and because you cannot just do what everybody is asking you to do. So when we heard this, we really heard it was very granular how they explained what was missing, and they couldn't find. And this is a good luck. They couldn't find it somewhere else because no other brand was doing it. So we were lucky to be there and owning that formula, owning that technology to redevelop it and relaunched it. And I think it's so important to make sure that, it's not just listening, it's also answering. So, of course, we listened, but we answered, and then we had actually, and this was fascinating, we had many focus group and with different type of social women and different age and ask questions. And we learned a lot through that, which was amazing.
So you really took the time to like actually really listen and not just because sometimes we see brands just asking questions on social media to get engagement, but they don't really care about the answer. And in your case, you really, really like cared about what they had to say.
Yes, and also having a dialogue is very different because sometimes, we all are confused. Okay, so not only listening but also asking them questions, and all of a sudden you really find out exactly what the problem is. It's not just because they experience a lack of something. It's just it's really about challenging them. Have you tried that to make sure that we really target and know specifically what the issue is?
And there, I think one other point I'd love to hear how you think about this is, well, like you said, some are very vocal, so like those are the loudest. Then some might be more discreet about it, but actually matter more potentially for the business what they had to say. I know you also cater to like very, very, known people and big names. Like, how do you manage that? Let's say the noise and the quantity over maybe what's really important.
I always say to my staff and everyone, a vocal customer, an unhappy customer or happy, a vocal customer is a great customer because this is where, you haven't lost them. So somebody who doesn't complain but doesn't come back, it's basically a loss of customer. So I think it's so important to really pay attention and actually be thankful to have customers that express their sentiment, their opinion about the product or the brand. And I think it's so important to pay attention to that. And by the way, I'm a customer myself. So when somebody reach out to me to ask me how I feel or what could be done, better, I mean, I love it. By the way, basically, lately been traveling a lot. I take the time to answer, my feedback because I think it's so important. And by the way, I was pleasantly surprised to see a hotel in London when I went in London, where I made a remark that I was not happy with something. They came back and basically made it up and said, you know what, we'd love to offer you your next day couple nights for free. I thought, my God, they pay. And of course, I think it's important to feel gratified, feel heard, to feel appreciated. So I think that's an important thing. That's what it is. People want that. I do remember I went to a restaurant a long time ago for many times, and the maitre d' never knew. It was almost like it was the first time I've come there. I felt so unappreciated. But then you go to other restaurant where you feel like a king. It's like, oh my God, Mr. Fekkai, can I give you this table? What else? It's huge. It's day and night, and it's not about the food only. It's about the genuine appreciation and attention that you get.
We're back to the experience that you mentioned at the very beginning as well. And how do you feel this has changed, let's say, from the 80s and 90s, even this customer feedback loop to today, where you already mentioned to some more online things? How has that changed, you think?
I think what is happening is that today, the customer is very well educated. He's already coming to you knowing so much more than before. The reviews, and it's going to get even, better with AI. Today you can ask anything with Gemini and ChatGPT, whatever. Customer is going to come back, maybe teach you about your business, So I think it's important to really be aware of that and to be at the cutting edge all the time. Again, it's about how to delight them, to make sure that whatever they know about you, you still come back with a surprising, beautiful, advice, tip, or service or product.
How do you see this shape up in your businesses? Where do you like to see the focus? Because I understand this customer feedback and engagement is really, really dear to you, and also what it sounds like a really big part of the success you've had over so many years. How do you see this evolving? Like looking forward a little bit.
I think what is going to happen today is that, I'll give you an example. So let me backtrack. Years ago, when I first started my salon, I was the first one on the planet, and I'm saying this with humility, but I was the first one to offer free consultation to the customer. So they would come and time is money, and we would spend time to have a consultation and giving them tips and idea. So to make sure that they either would come back, or if they didn't like what you hear, they would not come back. But at least it was a very big piece of information. It was great. That was back then. I think today this hasn't changed. You have to do it in a different way, obviously using all the tools at your disposal, whether it's social media or anything else. But it's really about giving your customer all the tools so that they can have a delightful experience. Hair is different than skin. Hair can change throughout the day. So you could wake up in the morning with your hair smooth and maybe straight, and then it rain outside or humid, and the hair start to be curly, frizzy, whatever, poofy. So hair changes throughout the day. So I think it's important to make sure that you keep a great contact and great advice to your customers. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I think it's really important to be ahead of the curve, and especially with TikTok and Instagram, is to flood them. I love this word that I just heard that Trump is using, flooding the zone. Basically flooding with information, so to make sure that the customer really can pick what is right for them.
And you already mentioned a scenario with the AI involved, right? I'd love to touch a bit more on that idea. How do you see, like, you already use AI in the businesses, or how do you see even how brands, what is the role of a brand in an AI world? Even do you see a change, or do you still see brands continue as they have been?
At this point, it's so early. So I think we're using AI in a very primary basis, basically for research, for communication, for product development, for things like that. But AI is going to be so part of everything in our business, whether it's a CRM, whether it's the social media, whether it's even, as we know, production, videos, content. AI is going to do everything. But again, it has to be managed properly, it has to be, learned properly. But AI is going to pretty much, it's not going to replace our labor, but it's going to enhance and speed up, and I would call it make it hassle-free, the experience, not only with salons, but also with product.
So it's going to be really integral to everything we do with the brand.
Everything. I mean, it's going to be video campaign, content, pretty much everything. I mean, it's interesting that it's going to be part of everything we do.
So are you looking forward to seeing more of it and integrating more of it, it sounds like?
Absolutely. You have no choice. If you don't do that, then you're basically not existing. So you're dead. So you have to, and it's going to be good for everyone. I mean, it's going to be good even for the back end of the business, for the bookkeeping, for the inventory, for can you imagine? It's amazing what would happen. So with AI, you will know so much data. You will know how many customer comes between 8 o'clock in the morning and 11 o'clock in the morning. You will know how many customers bought product and the one who didn't buy product, why they didn't buy product. Because they were in a rush, because they didn't get the information, whatever. So once you have all this data, I mean, you really can fulfill and enhance and make great progress in your business.
And on this data, and I think that I'd love to close on this question as well, this closeness, this proximity with the customer, really understanding them deeper. Can you bridge that from the offline world, let's say from the salons, to the online world? Do you see how this can be done nicely more?
Yes. First of all, I think it's important to make sure you do the experience on and offline very similar. It has to be that you feel the message is consistent, is even the pricing is the same. The events that you do online, you cannot ignore them offline, because otherwise you're cheating. I think it's important to customer feels great trust. To me, it all boils to one thing, is to make sure that you, every time, whatever you do, is the customer trusts you and feels like, oh my God, they have my back. They have my back, and do whatever we can. Anything, whether it's making sure that the product comes on time to their house, that if they come in the salon, so if we know that the client loves a cappuccino with almond milk, it's there ready for them, things like that. So everything that makes it, oh my God, I feel special.
Delight. Yeah. We're back, and this is really, for me, this throughout the entire conversation has been this red thread that I feel has really made all your customers, and still make all your customers, feel so delighted, is that this is really the essence, I feel like, for how you built everything you've built. Is that a fair thing to say?
Absolutely. And it's very interesting, because we know what we know, and there's so much we don't know. So I think it's important the customer feels like what he or she doesn't know, you have been able to bring it up, and making sure that they're aware and can deal with it. Whether it's how to deal with a bad hair color, or deal with somebody who's doing a lot of outdoors and the hair behave completely differently because of the aggression of the sun, the water, and so on. So things like that, to make sure that the customer feels like they're equipped at all time to have the best look. And by the way, it sounds a little bit fluffy like this, but it is not. I mean, it's so important, and we see it with everyone on TV, for instance, whether it's a politician, whether it's a TV personality, so on. I mean, hair shows incredible personality and makes you feel powerful, or the opposite. So it's so important to make sure you do it the right way, because you really are defined by your look.
I agree. And as you said, it can also change throughout the day.
Exactly.
Thank you so much. We're already at the end of the half an hour that we scheduled for the recording. Mm-hmm. This was so insightful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I hope we can at some point continue that conversation, because it's been just fascinating to listen how you've built the businesses.
With pleasure. Anytime. Thank you.